Welcome to Coast with the Conduit culture. Join us as we have insightful and curious conversations with successful entrepreneurs and visionaries from near and far. Let us connect you to amazing people. Let us be your conduit. Get ready, friends. We're going coast to coast in 3, 2.
Hi, Mike.
How you doing, Erica?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome.
Good. Today's a special day.
It is.
It is the very first episode where we have a guest on our podcast.
Maiden voyage.
I was going to be like Titanic, but that's actually not the reference that I will.
We will be deemed, they may call it unsinkable, and we will be unsinkable.
Right.
Because
we'll just like stick with all right. That's my cue. Okay.
Yes.
So we have Matt Robertson here. Matt Robertson has worn a lot of hats: professional basketball player, coach, award-winning medical sales leader, and now a financial advisor. After 10 plus years in high-performing industries, he shifted into finance 2 years ago to create a career that better fits his family and his family life. He's now part of a local firm managing close to $500 million. Is that like a billion? Where he helps families and businesses make smart financial decisions.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Robertson. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Guys, I'm so excited to be here. I've been called an iceberg before, so let's not sink the ship today, all right? I'm fired up, though.
We appreciate it.
There it is. Impenetrable defense.
We've got this.
That's it.
So exciting. So, Matt, you're here to talk to us about what you do.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you, so obviously we could buff up an amazing and craft an amazing intro for you. But I mean, you're so fantastic speaking from the heart and introducing yourself to many others. Say hello to everybody. Let us know who Matt Robertson is.
First of all, guys, I love you both. I'm thrilled to be here today as the inaugural guest. Really hope I can provide some value to your listeners and just honestly, at very least, here for a good time with two people that I love. So, guys, my name is Matt Robertson. I work in finance here in Moncton, New Brunswick, although the principles are pervasive across the country. We help people plan for their future. We help people not run out of money in retirement, decide what to do when they come into money now, and everything in between, protect their family, protect their legacy, and everything in between. That's the space of it. And if you don't have a financial advisor, you should at least have a conversation because you really don't know what you don't know.
And it seems like, planning for retirement is such a big forward plan, right? You have the gifted ones that just want to, see that from a very, very early age. But then as you're going through life, sometimes it's one of the last things you kind of think about because you believe that you have a whole bunch of time. And that is why, your compassion is so good within this industry. And we can't wait for, your knowledge, your expertise, and who you are as a person to shine, because that is very important, as you know, when selecting a financial advisor, a financial guide, and an expert. Would you not agree?
Yeah, fit is super important. I always kind of say, wherever you go, you're going to get pretty reasonably good advice, some better than others, but you're going to get pretty reasonably good advice wherever you go. But you're going to have to sit down with this person a couple times a year. You got to be cool with the person you're sitting across from, and you got to trust that person that they're making the right calls with your best interest in mind at all times. And most often, I think that's the case. The old saying, it only takes one a-hole, but there's a ton of compliance in place across the country to limit that segment of the marketplace, but most of the people in this role have your actual best interest at heart and are making decisions with that in mind. When you talk about compassion, I mean, guys, I know this is a core part of your business model also, but I'm going through Ted Lasso again for the second time. I'm obsessed.
Never watched it.
Erica.
I know. I need to watch it.
I just in from our first guest.
We'll watch it a third time. Well, my first, your third. We'll watch it together.
Yes, it is totally worth your time. The messaging from that I really want to carry through is there's a scene that's set up where one of the characters is being very kind of belittling and judgmental of another character. And he goes into this beautiful monologue about this Walt Whitman quote, be curious and not judgmental, and sort of what that means to him in that moment. And I had never really thought about it before seeing it through the first time, but that is something that I strive and sometimes fail. Sometimes the judginess creeps in when you run into some wild situations and characters. But if you can truly be curious and ask questions because you are interested and ask questions because you care, I mean, you're going to get the best answers, the best sort of data, and then be able to make the right decisions based off what you have. It's sort of the core fundamentals of how I want to run my business is people first. And this is going to sound slightly embarrassing, so stick with me. Our compensation plan is like 80 pages long. Yes, I do understand how we get paid, but there's a lot of minutia that I was like, I don't want to know. I truly don't want to know, because if I know that I'm going to get paid 0.02% extra for this thing versus that thing, that might affect the decisions that I make. As much as pure of heart and as I want to be, it is possible that those things kind of come into play. So I'm like, obviously I know the broad strokes. I'm not going and,
Yeah.
However, I don't want the minutia to decide recommending this product versus this product, or this version versus this. And it just, it's how I want to run my business.
Okay, hold on. You froze for a second. So can you just repeat your last sentence and say, it's how I want to?
It's just how I want to run my business.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
For sure.
So, I mean, there are things that you come to realize once you get into your career and you're working on your business, acronyms, things that for us it's like a second language. And in the financial world, I think we hear them more often in our day-to-days, like RRSPs and TFSAs. What do you want to say to the people who, what should, Canadians put money into first, but also if you want to learn more about it, or if you're okay just not knowing can you give me, explain it to me like I'm 5? Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely love this. So we're going to do a basic explanation, a basic why versus why not. And then I'm going to point you to some resources. So RRSP is Registered Retirement Savings Plan. The government's given us this vehicle to shelter some tax. And the broad strokes of it are, I put money in, I get tax back. And then when I take it out at the end of the road, I have to pay tax again, which some people think, well, I'm paying tax anyway. When you should put money into this is when you're making a lot of money now and you're going to be making less money later. So you are getting more money back up front on your taxes than you're going to be paying when you take it out. That's the simplest possible explanation. If we're going to make more now than we are later, RRSP is the number one stop for you. Does that make sense? First,
yes,
Erica,
Thank
5-year-old Erica's cool. You got it.
Still here.
TFSA is tax-free savings account. So you don't get any tax breaks. You don't get anything back when you put it in. You've paid tax on this money already. You got it in your paycheck. You put it in your tax-free savings account. But all the growth now in that account is tax-free, and you can take it out and put it back in as much as you want, and there's no tax implications for that. So if you've already maxed out your RRSPs, which there are some limitations to that, and that's a longer conversation, or you're not really sure if I'm going to make more money now than I am later, or if I'm making a little bit of money now, it's a great place to start to save for shorter term, medium term expenses, whether that's vacations, a new roof, a new car, anything that is sort of a short to medium term need or want. That's a great place to save for it, because that money can get some growth and there's no tax implications of that growth. And then as a secondary retirement vehicle to supplement all your RSPs and your pensions and all that kind of stuff, a great place for that as well. That's kind of how I and my firm approaches that subject. And obviously there's nuance in everybody's situation, and everybody's situation is a little different, but that's sort of the broad strokes of how we start to think about that.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yes, very much. Very much so. Thank you for that explanation, Matt. Now, you said, no tax implications in a TFSA, right? So short term, planning on pulling the money out, for understanding you correctly, you don't want to have a short term goal and pull money out from an RRSP. You want it to be out of a tax-free savings account. How would those two marry them together? Okay, so let's say, for example, I just start accumulating a bunch in my TFSA, and all of a sudden, I didn't pull out as much as I used to, or I didn't end up purchasing a car and whatnot. And that is just sitting there as a guide, as an expert, and those curious questions that you love to ask. What would be the natural transition and progress, that would benefit a client to go from a TFSA and use those funds that are just accumulating?
Yeah. So again, a bunch of different ways to think about this, but for people in your industry who are not incorporated, but just commission sort of based industries where one year might be amazing, another year, this sort of roller coaster cycles happen. And the hope is, and I think you guys have experienced some sort of stability and smoothing there. But for people who, in my former industry, for example, contract cycles are 2 to 5 years, depending on the type of thing. And so some years you might have awesome years and others not so much. Banking money in your TFSA, when you're like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be making more money later. So, you put 5 or 10,000 away a year. The limits right now are 7,000 per year, but you accumulate over time. So everyone who's been working since the program went into place has $102,000 worth of room. So putting $5,000, $10,000 away per year. And then when you have the big earnings year, You can put the money from your tax-free savings account into your RRSP to reduce your earnings for that year and get a nice big chunk back on your taxes. You can also, again, if you're in retirement and you've got a bunch of RRSPs that you're drawing down from and you don't want your income to increase beyond sort of the tax brackets that you're in, you can offset extra, or if you need extra money or want extra money, you can take it out of your tax-free. So there is some optimization from a tax bracket perspective. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds here for 5-year-old Erica, but
Appreciate that.
yeah, no, there's a lot of strategy involved with how you deploy those things, and you can marry them pretty successfully. But again, there's some art to the science as well, I think.
I love
We're
that.
back. Something happened with our storage.
Must have been an iceberg.
You know what?
I
I almost just spit out my tea just there. I almost spit out my tea. That was excellent.
Oh my goodness. It's like, you know.
You know what? We are Molly Brown.
It's,
And if you get it, if you know, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'll show you.
No,
yeah.
Molly Brown, the unsinkable Molly Brown.
Unsinkable Molly Brown. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So we'll cut that out.
We were asking questions.
Mhm.
You had said that you wanted to ask something that wasn't necessarily something that we had prepped.
Yes, that is correct. And when we were talking about TFSAs and RRSPs, and then I brought the whole mattress money comment over there, a lot of that was fear because a lot of people weren't necessarily sure how safe it would be to put their money and trust it within a bank. Within certain things. I know they have the CDIC. Explain that to the people as well there, Matt. But how do you just explain and have people become more comfortable with that their money is being safeguarded?
Yeah. So over the last 30, 40 years, I think a lot of the sentiment has moved on, and we have had sort of a growing trust in the banking industry in Canada. The regulations in Canada are very stringent, and because some people have taken advantage of the system over the years, these pieces keep getting put in place to roadblock that, to roadblock shady behavior, ostensibly. So it becomes very difficult from a compliance standpoint as somebody in the finance world to be dishonest, and I'm sure people still find ways, but it becomes very, very difficult for that. CDIC, to Mike's point, the Canadian government basically has insured $100,000 per person, per plan, per institution for bankruptcy and wrongdoing. And yeah, basically it's like a federal federal insurance that your money's going to be taken care of and your money's going to be there when you need it. People always look at the housing crisis in the US in 2008, where money seemingly disappeared. Mm-hmm. And the government bailed out the big hedge funds and the banks and everything else. And Canada has a plan in place that if anything ever were to happen in that space, that your money is going to be safe.
Amazing. Thank you for explaining that, for sure. And you brought up housing crisis in the States. Obviously, we're in real estate, but you still have a lot of close ties when it comes to advising clients as well and setting them up to be able to purchase a home or maybe the next one or cottage properties. Now, the big thing that was thrown around and created, I guess, if you can correct me, was the FHSA.
First Home Savings Account.
Got it. First Home Savings Account. Yeah. 5-year-old Erica, let's go. So amazing program geared at first-time home buyers, but not exclusively. If somebody has not owned a home for 4 full calendar years, they requalify as a first-time home buyer.
That's great.
But ostensibly, the government was like, cool, it's really hard for young people to save for a new house. How can we create this vehicle for them to have the best possible shot at doing so? And again, not necessarily just young people, but that was sort of, I think, the initial intention of the program. So I explained to you earlier the RRSP, where you put money in and you get money back from your taxes on your taxes that you've paid on that money. So basically reducing your income. I explained to you tax-free savings account, where it kind of comes and goes as you please with no tax implications taking it out. And FHSA is like the best marriage of the two. So let's say, for the sake of nice round numbers, you make $100,000 a year, and you take $8,000, which is the first year limit in the first home savings account. You get $8,000 of room for 5 years in a row, so $40,000 total, but $8,000 per year. So you made $100,000 this year. You put $8,000 in the first home savings account. That reduces your income to $92,000, and you get all the tax back that you paid on that $8,000, somewhere around $3,000 ish, depending on the situation. When you take that money out to buy a house, you do not pay tax on it. So you just got like $3,000 of free money back on your taxes that the government sort of incentivized you to save for a home responsibly. So most homes, I mean, if you just need a 5% down payment, you can afford an $800,000 home if you save $8,000 per year for 5 years. And that money's invested, so it's growing over time as well. So when the time comes, you're going to have more money than you put in, hopefully, to purchase your house. And if it's a short-term thing, you put it in something safe and yada, yada, yada. But ostensibly, that's the bones of the program. And it's magical. You're getting a 25% return on your money immediately today, as long as you are buying a house with that cash.
How do you reassure them that you are going to buy a house in 5 years or 4 years, to be like, I promise I'm like, and then when you take the money out, is there like a follow-up where they're like, let's make sure that you're going to put that $50,000 or $60,000 down on a house?
So yeah, there's a bunch of government documentation. And so your advisor will fill out all those papers for you. But you basically have to have a written agreement in place and purchase a house by October 30th of the following year that you make the withdrawal to October 30th, I think is the date, to qualify for this free, or it's called a qualifying withdrawal, but basically taking the money out for free. And from a growth and stability perspective, if you're planning to buy a house in a year, we don't invest it in something aggressive or market driven. It's going to be in something safe because you want it to be there in a year when you go to look for it. If you're like, I'm going to buy a house in 10 years, invest away. We want it to grow, and there's going to be some ups and downs, but it's going to grow over the space of time. You get a little more aggressive with it. But if it's a short to medium term purchase, the strategy changes a little bit for sure.
Okay. Now with that as well, sorry if you want to hold that thought, I ask something here. Let's say, for example, now we don't want to buy a house, but we utilize this first home savings account.
Or we're moving. Like, what if something changes in your scenario?
Moving to Sweden or moving anywhere else that doesn't have the first home savings account, or into the States or something like that. So what happens to the gains, let's say? What happens to the additional perk from the government? Well, what happens there?
So after 15 years, if you do not buy a house, it's okay, but you lose the sort of ability to take it out tax-free. So it becomes absorbed. So let's say you put in your 40 grand. Over 15 years, it's grown to be 85 or 90 grand. That number just gets rolled over into your RRSP. So you don't have to pay the tax back that you got back on it, but you will have to pay tax when you take it out of that account. So it goes from the FHSA vehicle and rolls over into your RSP after 15 years.
Well, there you go.
I really appreciate you knowing the answers to our questions.
That's a big deal though, right? Because RSP, TFSA, FHSA, RRSPECT. I don't know, like all these different things, right? So it's high interest savings accounts. All these banks have many, many different accounts. And I think, with your guidance, that is why you can demystify and clear up a lot of the murky waters of where clients or prospective clients would be best suited to put their money into.
It's a good segue.
Absolutely. It's part of the job. Sorry,
Maddie. I was just saying it's a good segue to talk about, like, we help people spend big lump sums of money or prepare to, on homes, but we're always hearing different things about like investing and where, you put your money. And, I think we're the first generation where we have the majority of people, if you've got a two income household, both people are working, both people are contributing. How do you navigate the conversations about investing? Because your taxes will go up and child tax-free savings. You know what I'm saying? There's just a lot of moving money all the time. If someone says to you, Matt, I would like to invest some money, what is something that they should have prepared for you?
Yeah, great question. So I always say, first meeting, we're having a conversation. Unless you're like ready to go, set to go, have all your ducks in a row, we're just having a conversation to see if we're a good fit. Because again, you need to be seeing this person every year, multiple times a year, asking for money when the time comes. Like, there has to be sort of a built-up relationship and built-in trust. So the first meeting is mostly just a conversation. But if the people are ready to go, they need to be bringing statements, information about how much money they're spending every month, how much money they're making every year, any sort of outside assets. Like, the full financial picture is what we like to have, because we become the quarterback of the situation. So if we need to bring in advanced accounting for some more complex work, or if we have to bring in legal for estate planning, like, you shouldn't have to worry about going to find the correct people and worry if these people are qualified. Those are that's our job, to vet these people and vet these situations. Really, at the end of the day, if you have some semblance of a vision for what you want your retirement to look like, we can build you a roadmap and how to get there from your situation. And it's not always exactly like you see it. If you make $30,000 a year, you're not going to be able to have caviar on the beach when you're 65 unless you save every penny that you make and invest aggressively. But there is some reasonable roadmap for everybody to get where they want to go. But the earlier you can start, the infinitely easier it is to create that sort of vision into reality.
I love that.
Okay, let's talk really quickly about debt versus investing. We, talk a lot about rates, or we hear a lot about rates.
Mhm.
We obviously talk about rates, you talk about rates, percentages, and that kind of thing. But for people who are just like, I owe money on my credit card or my student line of credit or my mortgage, but I also want to plan for the future, what would you say to them?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to give you the answer of what's optimal, and then we can talk about what's right, because those are two different things.
Okay.
Love it.
There is a very famous financial book that is probably the first book I ever read. My dad gave it to me when I was like 19, called The Wealthy Barber. And yeah, it's a very famous book in a ton of circles. And if you haven't read it and you don't know anything about finance, it's like a good place to start, pretty harmless. But there's a principle in here that he talks about that I reference all the time. And it's interest rates versus investment returns. For example, if you have credit card debt, which is death, so please don't if you can help it, but your interest rate is probably 21%. So theoretically, for every dollar you pay off that debt, you get a 21% return because you're not having to pay that interest rate.
Mhm.
On the other side of the spectrum, over here on my right, is the stock market. And if you put money in and you get a 10% return, that is the return on that money. So if we think about it in what is a reasonable return expectation over time, that's how we make the decision about what's optimal. If your mortgage rate is like 4%, over time, we can beat that in the market almost every year. And yes, there's going to be some down years in there, but over time, yes, you're going to do better than that in the market as long as you're appropriately invested. That's what's optimal. So if you have less than a 5% interest rate, I think we can beat that almost every year when invested appropriately, and you should invest instead of putting bigger chunks down on your mortgage. However, there are some people that lay awake at night because of this bulk number that the mortgage represents to them. And for them to inherit $50,000 and put it into the market versus putting a big chunk down on their mortgage is going to cause them to stay up at night restlessly. I will advise that it might not be the most optimal solution for them, where that money probably should go into the market, into the future planning. Likely, again, everything in our world is, it depends on the full situation.
Mhm.
But if it is something that you're going to stress about and lose sleep over and get sick because of, then that's going to be the correct answer for you, unfortunately, for the optimal part of that. But again, every situation is different. Everybody's needs are different. And that's part of our role, is to sort of suss out the correct priorities and the correct needs and wants, and what the sort of order of operations has to be for that person to be financially healthy.
Love it. Love it. Now, in Canadian finance, I mean, you work with, 7 other brilliant advisors. And there's always a lot of other chatter. It's 7, right? Because there's 8 within retirement planning, or is there more?
A couple brilliant advisors and a couple other guys. No, I work with 7 other advisors at the firm, and honestly, like, the majority of my education has come from them. I have a couple of incredible mentors over there, and the firm is doing it right.
Now, I guess the root of that question there is that there's obviously a lot of talk in the office. There's a lot of talk with other peers in your industry as well. What you see on the news, what you see, people, armchair experts almost, saying that, the market's going to go this way, or a crash is going to be imminent, or anything else like that, right? I mean, there's a lot of noise that is going on out there. A lot of chatter. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to make somebody a fortune, but you can't tell their fortune. That's the weirdest thing about it, right? We say all the time, there's no crystal ball. We aren't the oracle, and we can only just use what has happened in history. We have the data to present itself and make the best guidance there, because at the end of the day, people make decisions for their reasons and never ours. We just have to make sure that we're able to communicate effectively and guide them to their best, as you alluded into the beginning, as to why your conversations and your curiosity is so important. What is the best way, in your opinion, for Canadians to stay focused, on their financial goals with all of this noise going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, the sort of broadest answer possible for the first part of this is all we have to look back is the history of the marketplace. And at no point in time in any 10-year slice, like January 1st, 2000 to January 1st, 2010, January 2nd, moving forward and backward in 10-year slices, at no point has the market been lower at the end of a 10-year slice than it was in the beginning. So the market does inevitably go up, even though there are a lot of ups and downs. And, the famous numbers are 2000, 2008, 2018, 2022. Those were big down years.
Right.
However, even in the lowest of low, when the market dropped in COVID, like 20 or 30%, like overnight, this giant V in the chart, when you look back on it, the bottom of that V is still higher than 10 years before by a significant amount. Our history tells us that the market has historically gone up despite all these crazy things. And if you look back at the news in 1985, it's like war in Russia and economic uncertainty and all of these, different characters, similar headlines. So there is a lot of noise, and there has been a lot of noise through human history, and especially the last 120 years of our sort of like market life. So that's the first part, is that like history inevitably repeats itself. We have been here before. So that's the first part. We have sort of a newish character to the south that has been the best word would be unpredictable. But again, we do have 4 years of history with this person, 2016, 2020. And the word tariffs were being thrown around at that time. And the first time he started threatening tariffs, it was a 10-day recovery. The second time it was a 1-month recovery. And the third time it was a 100-day recovery. The markets always came back. And in this most recent event, it took about 2.5 months. And the market was back to where it was before all of this sort of like this international trade nonsense, international trade war going on. I don't want to call it nonsense because it affects so many people's livelihoods and companies and everything else. So there is a ton of noise out there. However, over the long haul, in the large scale picture, if you zoom out to 1,000 feet or 10,000 feet, it has not had an impact on the long-term viability of the market and your investments. So easy for me to put that in context because I'm living in that world every day. Harder for the average person who only has CNN on when they eat breakfast and lunch, or Fox News or whatever they tend to subscribe to. Difficult to tune that out, but you just have to trust. I'd say the two things you can control are fees and strategy. So, put your money into funds where the fees are reasonable for what you're getting, for the management that you're getting, whether active or passive, doesn't matter. Again, I have my own opinion on what's best, but that's my opinion and our firm's opinion. And then the strategy. So if we have 10 or 20 years for this money to grow, we can be a little bit more aggressive with it. If we need this money in 1 to 5 years, we need to be less aggressive. And if you're retired, we can segment your portfolio in a way that some of it's growing, some of it's safe, and so on and so forth. So, Mike, that's a long answer to your question, is that you can control strategy and fees. So we can control what we can control. And we have to be able to at least quiet some of those other pieces in order to feel good and to be able to sleep at night. And I have clients who they want to get an update quarterly, they want to get an update annually, and they never want to talk about it otherwise because it's too stressful. And that's fair. Like, let me keep an eye on it for you. You just get to go away, live your life, and come back and we'll talk about it at the frequency that you want to talk about it. Because it is really hard to separate all the news and all the noise from your emotional health and thinking about finance all the time,
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
stressful.
I love that answer. So for the majority of investors, a lot of people are on salaries and work jobs. But now we're talking, obviously there's a gigantic world about it. Small business owners, entrepreneurs, what strategies should they be thinking about? Because I do believe they have different, abilities as well in order to manage their money. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. So this gets really nuanced. And again, we're going to give a broad strokes answer because it gets pretty complicated pretty quick. But as a business owner, you get to strategize how is going to best work for you in the future. So for example, paying yourself out salary and dividends, and your accountant's going to be able to give you the exact math of what's optimal for you. But if you choose to pay yourself in a more dividend-oriented situation, there's $10,000 to CPP that you just aren't paying every year. Now, you lose the benefit of having that CPP safety net down the road. But if you're a disciplined saver and can invest that for the future, you get a little more flexibility with that money. But again, it has to work for you. So if you're somebody who struggles saving, that may not be the best option for you. because you want to have that CPP payment guaranteed there when you arrive at 60 or 65 or whenever you choose to take it after 60. This is a super broad question. So when I look at things, there's going to be unflexible money. So for example, your CPP and your OAS, your old age security at 65, and if you have a defined benefit pension plan through your work or some kind of annuity where it's a guaranteed payment every month forever, that is non-flexible money. That's, oh, I don't need this much money. Well, too bad it's coming in. Or, ooh, I need more money right now. Too bad. This is the amount of money that's coming in every month. It's nice. We know it's predictable. We know exactly what's going to be coming in. For me, in my incorporation, I want to have ultimate flexibility and control. Maybe that says a little bit about me as a person, or maybe not, but I want to have flexibility and control. And I know that the first, hopefully, again, health permitting and God willing, the first 10 or 15 years of my retirement, I want to travel and I want to do fun things, and I want to do fun things now and later. But as my ability to do so becomes limited, I want to have planned for this. So if I'm going to spend more money in the first 10 years of my retirement, I want to have access to a big chunk that I can kind of use to fund that fund and activity. Whereas if I'm expecting my CPP to be there every month, it's going to be the same and it's consistent, but I want more of it up front. I want to front load that number, if that makes sense. So that's sort of how you pay yourself is the first part. And then using your corporation as a savings vehicle in the real estate world, or if you have a business that is maybe difficult to sell in a traditional sense, you can use your corporation or have a holdco that's sort of connected to it as sort of an RRSP in a way, or as your savings vehicle, as opposed to paying yourself out across the tax line and then going into an RRSP back across the tax line. This looks much easier in a diagram on paper, but ostensibly you can use your corporation as a savings vehicle with which to kind of take your retirement money out of when the time comes, is sort of the simplest way to look at it. So there's all kinds of creativity, all kinds of tax planning, all kinds of different structures that you can get into for your corporations. There's just, if you are a small business owner, you need to have somebody at least talking about this with you, because there's, again, we talked the first comment, you don't know what you don't know. It's important to have a plan and someone helping you long term, unless this is your passion and you know everything about it. Yeah, it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly, but it does give you a lot more flexibility in how you want to proceed and how you want to save.
That's right. And it's funny that you say you don't know what you don't know. It's not like these a lot of these strategies and these mechanisms are a secret. I mean, nobody's trying to keep them away from people, but it's just, you don't know what you don't know. They are there. And then that's why they need somebody trusted like you, an expert, to basically peel back the layers of the onion so that the small business owner can understand what they have basically waiting at the tips of their fingertips, right?
There's a bunch of different ways to have your money work for you. And if you don't have a guide, you're doing the best that you can with what you got. But there's just, before I got into the business a couple of years ago, I would never have thought to use a life insurance policy inside my corporation to leverage for outside purchase. It's just not something that would have been in my realm of conversation or thought process. There's just 6 or 7 mechanisms that exist to help you take money in and out simply. And then there's a number more that get on the accounting side, that get infinitely more complex. And the CRA is closing loopholes that sort of limit some of these, but the tax planning and the complexity is almost infinite in how complicated it can get.
For sure.
So I think there are 2 very strategic ways to go about what you do, or components, because there is those complicated understandings, like the complications of, not complications, what am I trying to say? The complexity of understanding how investments and accounting and those kinds of things work and how you can make your money work for you, but also the complexity of people and who they are and how, you have to tap into 2 different parts of your brain when you are advising people. What is something about the job that you love when working on the people side of things? Because we are very relationship-based people. We know you are, but we just want to share a little bit of that with everybody.
Yeah, we should have led with this. This is one of my favorite things.
I know.
Honestly, every day I get to hear people's stories. I mean, on the surface, that's a simple thing. But man, people trust us with so much information. We have to know when, somebody's sick in the family, separation is pending. When personal circumstances interact with finance, we are kept in the loop. And it's an honor and a privilege to have this sort of depth of knowledge, but just people are the thing that I care about most, and I want to be a good steward of the money and people in my path. So getting to hear the stories every day and getting to empathize and getting to live through the ups and the downs, both personally and financially, with these people is like, that's what truly fills my bucket. And having worked in a few different industries, I am very competitive, and I've found a way to make this like, the growth plus people equation kind of maximize my experience. But in this setting, this is my favorite version of this, learning people's personalities, learning people's stories, and really being truly helpful to everyday people and to some really high net worth individuals and some young and up and comers and everybody in between. Like, that's the stuff that really kind of fills my professional bucket. And I'm very grateful to be able to have that as part of the job. And that's kind of what drew me to the business in the first place.
You said a couple words there. Empathy in the very beginning. You had curiosity. Obviously, I threw the word in earlier about compassion. All three of those things together are what you are because we know you're very, very strong at that. Anybody that would leave a conversation from you has felt seen, has felt heard, has felt appreciated. And that is those things that we know of you. And we know that you really lean into the importance of those three things, albeit maybe a natural, God-given talent or something that you truly focus on to do it. Would you attribute your success, within this financial industry and everything over the course of your life? Would you attribute that success as a whole due to the part of your curiosity, empathy, and compassion to help be a steward, to help be, help people and really lean into relationships?
So first, that's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate that. I'm not good at taking compliments. We're going to run right by it. But I feel that many of the things that mean a lot to me are on the other side of the screen there as well. Like, I know that many of the things that I care about, you also care about when it comes to people. So thank you, and reciprocate as much as I can. Yeah, I mean, especially on the East Coast, I know these skills and these things are pervasive across the country. And if you're compassionate and curious, conversation is inevitable wherever you go. But I've always said business on the East Coast runs just a little bit differently in that relationships become superior to almost every other sort of nuance in a business dealing. So I've always said, for example, a couple of jobs ago, I worked for this small to mid-sized medical company, and my boss was based out of Quebec, and he would come down and have a way of asking questions and kind of pursuing business that was sort of counter to my approach, and not wrong, and where, in his context was a very successful sales rep at the time. But out here, it just would rub people a little bit the wrong way. And my job is to make people feel seen and heard and give them a recommendation that's best for them. Not that's like, this is best for me and here's why it's best for you also. It's, oh, this is best for you and I'm going to figure out how to make it work for me, is sort of the order of operations. So I think that the compassion, empathy, curiosity approach can be pervasive wherever you are, in Ontario and BC, in the US, wherever you are. That leads to conversation, and conversation leads to business. That's just how the trajectory of things go. But particularly here on the East Coast of Canada, relationships are the number one thing, and then everything else becomes secondary. If you steamroll and bulldoze to a deal, you'll get your one deal done, and then you'll probably never get another deal from that person again. Whatever industry or angle that you're looking at it from, unless you have something that is a necessity for that person, they can only get it from you, they'll probably get it from somebody else if you make them feel a kind of way through the process, So I do believe in it. And again, maybe I have lost some deals over the past because I wasn't willing to burn a bridge or steamroll. But somebody recently recommended a Simon Sinek book, Infinite Game, to me. And that's the whole thing, is the approach of making decisions with the next deal and the next deal and the next deal in mind, not just short-sighted, this is going to work for today and tomorrow. We need something that's sustainable, especially if you plan on doing business in this city, in this province, in this country for decades. You can't make short-sighted decisions for today's win, because you're going to lose more than you win. Yeah. It will.
100%. We get it.
I'm going to make you toot your own horn here, Matt, before we kind of wrap this thing
He's like,
here.
Please no.
I was like,
like, oh, I'm sorry, what? You're frozen.
That's it. Yeah. Matt Robertson, how would you rank your relationships on a scale of 1 to 10? over life, over
Whoa.
business. I know that's a big one. How would you
I
rank your
mean, it depends on the circle. Like I have a lot of acquaintances where I probably could pour more into those relationships, but the people that are close to me, I'm very grateful to have a relatively small but great circle of 10 out of 10 relationships, man. Like I'm super grateful, and people that I get to play golf with, and people that I get to hang out with, and people that I get to spend a lot of concentrated time with and talk about things beyond the weather. And it's not always super deep thought, but it can get there. And that, I think, is the mark of a strong or healthy relationships, is that you can go deep or you cannot. Sometimes my wife will ask Erica, you know her well, you're out on the golf course, Mike and Erica today, what'd you guys talk about? And I was like, nothing, everything in between.
Yeah.
Have dealt with some of the lowest moments of my life with people on the golf course, like two of my best friends, and also have made, just have had laughs for 4 hours. It's not always deep, but the ability to go deep, I think, is the mark of a healthy and strong relationship, even if you're not just kind of going deep all the time, because that bit gets a little heavy and difficult. But yeah.
Well, you said 10 out of 10, Matt. We can honestly
give you 10
agree.
out of 10.
You are absolutely correct. I mean, you're in terms of, many things. I mean, we can go on forever about you. Yeah, when it comes to relationships, you are just an absolute phenom with holding them together, building them, and just making people feel absolutely valued. And that is a big credit to your success. I know you don't like compliments, so
No, thank you.
I'm not like dishing them out on something.
I know.
Like this. I make people feel weird.
I think it's funny that you equate it to a compliment because it's just a fact. Like it's not like someone's just like, oh, like great golfer. Like it's more like the ability that you have to make people feel comfortable is a talent.
Yes.
And I don't think that you need to perceive it as a compliment. I think you just need to perceive it as a fact. And we have no reason to lie to you. We've already got you here for 40 minutes. We've got a ton of content. But it's more of us. It's our job as people who care about our community to link up other people who we think are a good fit to care about other people.
Absolutely.
And we feel you embody that. Whether it's, I never hesitate to pick up the phone, if you're on the other end, I'm not like, oh, it's Maddie. Like I'm always excited to see your face, whether it's at a show, whether it's on the golf course, whether it's in, a consultation for work, whether it's here at our office to help give advice.
Teaching others, yes.
Teaching others. I think you genuinely care about people. And our mission with this podcast or with this, this channel, this classroom, whatever we want to call it, is to connect other people to people who we think care about others. Yeah. And so we are so grateful to you for your time today.
Matthew Robertson, how do people get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can find me on Retirement Planning Solutions. You just Google us. I'm on the website. But LinkedIn's the best spot, probably. I do check it reasonably frequently, and that's probably the best place to find me.
Great. And we'll put all of those links and URLs in the body of the YouTube
the full episode here as well. So Matt, thank you so much as a friend, as a guide, as a golf partner, as just an all around amazing person, human being that we get to call friend. I'm the newest to this party, and I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for Erica, and I genuinely consider you to be one of the best. So thank you so much. I know that anybody you have the opportunity to help in the finance industry or anything, retirement planning solutions or any of the sort, is in amazing hands. And I wish you nothing but the best.
You guys are the best. If you're not willing to call them compliments, let's just say it's very kind of you to say those things. And I love you both. And I really appreciate you having me. This is a lot of fun. Anytime we get a chance to chat, whether it's in person, Riverside, whatever, I'm very thankful for the time and thankful to both of you.
Next step up, we'll have you in studio.
Next time we'll be here in the studio.
Please, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Matt.